Subscribe to our YouTube channel and press the bell icon so that you never miss any video lesson from RAU'S Study Circle. Hello and welcome to the Daily News Simplified, an analysis of the Hindu newspaper from UPSC perspective. Today we will take up the daily edition of the Hindu newspaper dated 31st October 2020. And the articles that we are going to discuss here are displayed on your screen. Now if you go through today's newspaper, you will find that not many articles are important for us from the preliminary examination point of view. However, there are certain articles in which there are important points that can be used in answers in different papers of general studies. So the takeaways from this discussion should be the protectionism that is visible in the Vocal for Local campaign under the Nirbhar Bharat Abhiyan of India. Also, what would be the long-term impacts of such protectionist policies under the Nirbhar Bharat Abhiyan? Further, there is an article on page number 6 under which you should learn about the reasons for the occurrences of urban floods and what needs to be done to reduce the occurrences of urban floods in India. Then there is an important article related to the Malabar naval exercise. So in this, you should learn about the background of Malabar naval exercise, why this year's Malabar exercise is important or what is unique about this year's Malabar exercise, also which country is joining the exercise this year, and why is China concerned about this exercise and what are the challenges for India in fully exploiting the cooperation with the countries that are participating in this exercise in countering China. And finally, in the editorial related to the science of monsoons, you should look for how does the IMD predict the monsoons and what are the difficulties in the prediction of Indian monsoons. So these will be the takeaways from this discussion. So let's start with the first article now. Now this article on page number 1 relates to the issue of protectionism. And we note that India had imposed and taken various steps under its Atmanirbhar Bharat Abhiyan in order to boost its economy during the COVID-19 pandemic. Further, by announcing the Atmanirbhar Bharat Abhiyan, India wanted to move away from its dependency on different global economies. And under this campaign, India had imposed custom duties on various imports in order to boost local manufacturing. However, in this regard, the Niti Aayog chairman has said that India is not a closed economy and these custom duties will not be permanent in nature. Now, this move of India is seen as a sign of protectionism. And in this regard, let us look at the strategies that were adopted by India under its Atmanirbhar Bharat Abhiyan and what are the likely impacts of such kind of moves in the long term on the Indian economy. And they can be important for us from General Studies Paper 3 point of view under the topic Economic Development. So as we all know that during the COVID-19 pandemic, the Prime Minister of India gave a call for Atmanirbhar Bharat Abhiyan or the Self-Reliant India movement. And this was announced in response to the economic hardships that were created by the COVID-19 pandemic. And during this campaign, the Prime Minister of India had coined the slogan of Vocal for Local. Now, what is meant by this Vocal for Local campaign? So let us look at the important pillars of this Vocal for Local campaign. So the first pillar of this Vocal for Local campaign is boosting of local manufacturing of goods. And in this regard, the government has announced that this local manufacturing will be boosted by both the domestic countries as well as those foreign companies which are operating in India. So this move was similar to the Make in India campaign, where the Indian government aimed at boosting manufacturing by both the domestic as well as the foreign companies. The second pillar of the Vocal for Local campaign is the boosting of local supply chains. Now, in the era of globalized economy, we note that the international supply chains of goods and services are all interlinked. However, in this regard, the government of India aimed at creating the entire supply chain for the manufacturing of goods within India only. And this was aimed at giving further thrust to the manufacturing sector and making India a self-reliant economy. So in short, the Indian government aimed at reducing the dependence on other countries for its local manufacturing. And the third important pillar of this Vocal for Local campaign was boosting the demand for goods that are manufactured in India. And the Indian customers must not only buy the Indian manufactured goods, but also promote these goods which are manufactured in India at the same time. So the three important pillars of the Vocal for Local campaign included the boosting of local manufacturing of goods, boosting of local supply chains for manufacturing of these goods, and also boosting the demand for goods that are manufactured in India. So, in this regard, what are the strategies adopted by the government to promote these local goods, and what is the likely economic impact of such strategies in the long term is important. So, the first strategy that was adopted by the government was appealing to the nationalistic sentiments of the people. And in this appeal was made to the nationalistic sentiments of the Indians to buy and promote Indian goods. At the same time, a fallout of such a strategy was that it also campaigned for boycotting the goods that are produced in China. Second strategy adopted by the government was withdrawing from the free trade agreements. And in this regard, we note that India had decided to withdraw from the RCEP, or the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership, that was going on between the ASEAN countries and its six free trade agreement partners. So India had withdrawn from this RCEP, and also India had called for reviewing of all the existing free trade agreements to make them more India friendly. And the third strategy that was adopted by the government of India was increasing the customs duty and safeguards duty on imports from other countries. And this was done in order to promote domestic manufacturing. So, by looking at these strategies that are adopted by the government of India for the promotion of local goods, we see that all these are signs of protectionism. However, such protectionist moves are not good for the economy in the long term. So, in this regard, let us look at the problems and the challenges that are likely to be faced by the Indian economy if such protectionist moves are continued for a long time. So, the first and the foremost problem associated with such protectionist strategies are that it will give a setback to India's most ambitious program of Make in India and Assemble in India. And this is because some of the important industries of India, for example, the pharma industry, automobile industry, or electronic industries, are heavily dependent on raw materials from countries such as China. And there are many raw materials which are not produced in India, and hence India needs to import such raw materials from foreign countries. So, if India imposes customs duties and increases these duties on such import of raw materials, it is likely to increase the cost of raw material for local manufacturing. And as such, it will adversely impact the local or domestic manufacturing in the long term. So, this clearly highlights that such a move will be a setback to the Make in India and Assemble in India campaign. Second is that the protectionist moves are against the well established theory of comparative advantage. Now, according to the theory of comparative advantage, countries must focus on production of only those goods which can be manufactured cheaply in comparison to other, and such products which are manufactured based on comparative advantage are competitive in the international market and can be very useful in boosting the exports of a country. So the theory further states that those goods which cannot be manufactured cheaply in comparison to other countries, or if a country does not have any competitive advantage in production of a particular commodity, then it should import such goods from other countries. And according to this theory, a country cannot manufacture all the products that are required for its domestic consumption. And if a country engages in bilateral trade, it benefits both the countries. And this is because it enables both these countries to import those goods which otherwise cannot be manufactured economically as compared to the other trading partners. So basically, this theory highlights that the countries should manufacture only those products which can be produced cheaply or at a competitive price as compared to the other countries. Third is that such kind of protectionist moves hinder innovation in the local industry. And that is because the domestic companies do not face any competition with the foreign goods or products. And as such, it leads to complacency and decline in the quality of goods that are produced in the local markets. Further, historically also, this policy has seen a failure. And in the second 5 year plan, India adopted the policy of import substitution. And this policy aimed at curbing imports from the foreign companies. However, this strategy of policy of import substitution failed miserably, and as such, India adopted the policy of liberalization, privatization, and globalization in the year 1991. Further, international experience suggests that open economies are likely to grow at a faster rate. And we note that countries like China and other smaller economies like Vietnam and Malaysia have achieved higher growth rates through free and open trade. So, as such, inward looking policies, which are signs of protectionism, do not help the economies in the long run. Further, such protectionist moves will also invite retaliatory actions from other countries. And such retaliatory actions further adversely impact the economies of the nations. Now we see that US and China are currently involved in a trade war. And as such, the economies of both these nations are getting impacted because of such moves. Further, such kind of protectionist policies discourage foreign investment, and we note that India has been focusing on attracting the foreign direct investments through various policies. However, if India imposes customs duties on imports of important articles, this will discourage the foreign investment in India. And such policies discourage the foreign investment because it does not create a level playing field for such foreign companies who want to invest in the local economy. And finally, the global experiences suggest that export led economies are the ones who witness high growth rates. And one of the finest example of such export led growth is China. So if India adopts such protectionist policies, it will be a setback for India's export led growth ambitions. So, if India starts imposing higher customs duties or following protectionist policies, then other countries would also take retaliatory action by increasing the customs duties. And as such, Indian exports will be adversely impacted, and the Indian ambition of boosting its domestic growth through its exports would be adversely impacted. So, due to the various problems that are associated with the protectionist policies or the strategies that are adopted by the government, it is said that the government must realize that the path to self sufficiency is through the export promotion and global economic integration rather than protectionism and import substitution. So, the focus of the government should be on boosting exports and on global economic integration and not on protectionist policies or narrow looking inward policies. So in this article, we have clearly looked at the strategies adopted by the India in its Nirbhar Bharat Abhiyan and Vocal for Local campaign. And at the same time, we have looked at the problems associated with such strategies in the long term on the economy. And they can be very important for us from the General Studies paper 3 point of view in the topic economic development, where you can be asked questions on the issues related to protectionism or issues related to the Atmanirbhar Bharat Abhiyan. And with this, let's take up the next news article now. Now, this article on page number 6 has been written in the context of the recent floods that happened in the city of Hyderabad. Now, we note that various Indian cities have been adversely impacted by flood. And some of the examples of the Indian cities which have been adversely impacted by flood include the floods in the Chennai in the year 2015. And also, Gurugram is continuously in news because of bad urban planning and the consequent floods that happen in this city. Now, besides these three prominent examples, various other Indian cities have also been adversely impacted because of urban floods. So, in this regard, the urban floods are becoming a cause of concern for the disaster management authorities. So, in this background, let us understand what are these urban floods, how are they caused, or what are the reasons for these urban floods, and also what needs to be done in order to control the instances of urban floods in Indian cities. And they can be important for us from General Studies paper 3 point of view in the topic disaster management. Also, they can be important for us from General Studies paper 1, where questions can be asked related to various reasons that cause floods. So here we will not be looking at the larger phenomena of floods, however, we will be focused on the issue related to the urban floods. So first, let us understand what are these urban floods and what are the reasons for the happenings of urban floods. Now, a flood is defined as an overflow of a large body of water over areas that are not usually inundated. So, usually inundated areas are the rivers and the adjoining areas. However, those areas which are not usually inundated, and if a large overflow of water occurs in those areas, it is referred to as an instance of flood. And the flooding in urban areas is generally caused by intense or prolonged rainfall which overwhelms the capacity of the drainage system of that city, or when the rainfall is beyond the carrying capacity of the drainage system of an urban area, and this is defined as a urban flood. Now, what are the reasons for the happenings of these urban floods? So urban flooding is caused by three main factors, which include the meteorological, the hydrological, as well as the human factors. Now, meteorological factors are generally associated with the climatic conditions or the weather systems, and they can be caused by heavy rainfall, cyclonic storms, or thunderstorms. In the coastal areas, these floods are caused by high tides also. And a good example of floods that are caused by heavy rainfall along with high tides is the city of Mumbai. And during the instances of high tides, the drainage system of the cities is choked, and if there is heavy rainfall at the same time, then it leads to flooding in various areas of the cities. Now, besides the meteorological and the hydrological factors, the human factors are the most important reasons for urban floods. And in this regard, we see that the land use changes are occurring at a rapid rate in the urban areas, which means that the urban areas are expanding at an unprecedented rate. And due to this expansion of the cities, the residential areas are now occupying the floodplains of the rivers, and this is leading to the obstruction of the flood flows. And these human factors also include the rapid urbanization, the improper drainage systems, and population growth. And all these human factors are interrelated. Now, the population of the cities is increasing at an unprecedented rate, and that is mainly driven by the rural to urban migration. Now, as the migration in the urban areas is increasing, it is leading to rapid urbanization, which is a result of in-migration as well as increased economic opportunities in the urban areas. And because of rapid urbanization, there is change in the land use. It leads to occupation of floodplains, and which leads to the obstruction of flood flows. Further, due to rapid urbanization, the management of the urban areas become difficult. And due to this, there is lack of proper drainage systems in the urban areas. And that is because large habitations are coming up in low-lying areas. Further, there have been instances of encroachment over the drainage channels, and this was visible in the Chennai floods, where the floodplains of the Adyar River were occupied by human habitations, and they were the most adversely impacted regions during the Chennai floods. And also, we see there are illegal constructions in the drainage channels. So, here we see that the urban floods are caused by interrelated factors, which include meteorological, hydrological, as well as human factors. So, the meteorological factors can include heavy rainfall, cyclonic storms, or thunderstorms. Besides this, there are hydrological factors, for example, instances of high tides which lead to flooding or choking of the drainage systems. And besides that, there are human factors which are a result of population growth, rapid urbanization, lack of proper drainage systems, or lack of proper urban space utilization. So, after looking at the reasons for urban flooding, let us look at what can be done in order to reduce the instances of flooding in the urban areas. So, first and the foremost suggestion for handling the issue of urban flooding is that there is a need for improving the planning of flooding in the urban areas. And the urban planning should include participation of all the stakeholders. And this includes the municipal authorities, the people who are a part of that city, and also the civil society. And with the participation of all the stakeholders, there need to be a concerted and focused investments on handling the issue of urban flood, which will include the management of energy and resources in the urban areas. So the first focus should be on planning in the urban areas, which should include all the stakeholders. And if the planning is done properly, it will lead to better resource management and also in better utilization of the land in the urban areas. And the second focus needs to be on reducing concretization in the urban areas. Now we note that most of the rainfall that falls in the urban spaces does not find its way into the ground, and that is because of the concretization. So as such, there is a need for focusing on leaving green spaces so that the rainfall or rainwater can permeate into the ground. And as such, there is a need for increasing the permeability of the Indian cities. Now, as most of the urban areas are highly concretized, the water gets accumulated even in the instances of small rainfall episodes. and it is not able to find its way into the ground. So as such, there is a need for leaving more green spaces in order to increase the permeability of the cities. Further, there is a need for focusing on harvesting the rainwater for future use. And this can be done by building interconnected waterways, channels, and ponds across the neighborhoods in the cities. For this, the author says that this can be achieved by utilizing the existing government programs like the Smart City Mission, the Amrut Mission, etc. Further, we note that various natural wetlands in the urban cities like the lakes, ponds, etc. have also been encroached, or they are facing the problem of eutrophication. And as such, there is a need for focusing on the restoration of natural wetlands in urban areas, and they are known to effectively handle the flood waters. And last but not the least, there should be a ban on terrain alteration, and this has mainly to do with the land use issue in the urban areas. So with proper planning, the alteration in the terrain of the city can be done away with, which means that the floodplains should not be occupied, or those areas which are important for harvesting the floodwaters should not be inhabited. So by focusing on these areas, the instances of urban flooding can be reduced considerably, and that will reduce the instances of economic losses that happen because of these floods. With this, let's take up the next news article now. Now, this article on page number 10 reads that the Malabar naval exercises to kick off next week. Now, what is important about this year's Malabar naval exercise is that Australia is also joining the navies of India, United States of America, and Japan in this exercise in Bay of Bengal. Now, the joining of Australia also becomes very important here because these are the four countries who are also a part of the quadrilateral security dialogue. Also, we note that there has been increased talk about focus on the Indo-Pacific as a concept, and in that also India, US, Japan, and Australia are important members. So in this background, let us understand the basics of the Malabar naval exercise, how it started, and when did Japan join it, and also what is the importance of Australia joining this exercise. And some of the points that we discuss here can be important in General Studies Paper 2 under International Relations and also in the preliminary examination. So as we have learned, the first phase of Malabar naval exercise with Australia, Japan, and the US and India is scheduled in the next week. And this is the first time Australia will be joining the exercise after 2007. And it will bring all the four countries of the quadrilateral grouping together for the military games. So the importance of Australia joining this exercise is that these are the same countries who are also engaged in the quadrilateral security dialogue, which also focuses on the Indo-Pacific region and which is aimed at countering China in this region. Now, as far as the Malabar exercise is concerned, it was first established in 1992 between India and the United States of America. So this is an important fact that the Malabar exercise first started in 1992. However, this naval exercise did not become an annual feature because of the increasing tensions between India and the United States of America. And this was because of the nuclear explosion of India in 1998. So we note that United States of America had imposed various sanctions on India post this nuclear explosion in 1998. So it became an annual feature only in the year 2002. So this is also one important fact related to this Malabar naval exercise. Now in 2007, this Malabar exercise was enhanced as a 5-nation multilateral naval exercise, and it took on board Japan, Australia, and Singapore. Now, with 5 countries of this region joining the Malabar naval exercise, this was a cause of concern for China. And accordingly, in order to allay the Chinese concern, the Malabar exercise was again made bilateral. And in 2007, Australia did not participate in the Malabar exercise. And finally, Japan joined as a permanent member as late as 2015. And finally, in 2020, Australia has again joined this Malabar naval exercise. Now, this Malabar naval exercise gains importance in the backdrop of growing military strength of China in the Indian Ocean region. And its importance for India is that it enhances India's credibility in the maritime domain and also prioritizes the collective effort to secure the global commons like the oceans, space, and the cyberspace. So the joining of Australia becomes important because these are the countries which are also the members of the Quadrilateral Security Dialogue, which is aimed at countering the increasing presence of China in the Indo-Pacific region. Now, with the coming together of these four countries who are also the part of the quadrilateral grouping, the China sees this maritime exercise as an Asian version of the NATO, and this seeks only to contain Chinese rise. So this is one of the concern of China with all these four countries coming together. However, concerns have been raised that such kind of maneuvers can open a new front in the India-China conflict, where both these countries are already engaged in a standoff in Ladakh. Now, although all these four countries are participating in the naval exercise in Indian Ocean, the issue here is that there is lack of transfer of technology by the US companies with India. Further, Indian Navy is yet to develop the undersea capability to deter the Chinese submarines. Now, although on the face of it, this exercise looks as a very important step in countering the China. However, there are certain issues that need to be addressed, which can include the transferring of technology by the US companies to India, especially in the defense area. Secondly, India also needs to increase its submarine capabilities to counter the Chinese submarines. So we have seen the historical background of the Malabar naval exercise, the concerns of China, and the challenges faced by India in this regard. With this, let's take up the next news article now. Now, this editorial on page number 6 focuses on the issues with the monsoon predictions by the Indian Meteorological Department. And we note that recently the IMD had announced the withdrawal of monsoons from India. However, the concern here is that the amount of rainfall has surpassed the estimates that were provided by the Indian Meteorological Department. And the rainfall has been considerably high as compared to the prediction that was done by the IMD. So for the past few years, India has been receiving more rainfall than what has been predicted by the IMD. And due to this, it has been difficult for the authorities to properly align their disaster management plans for the monsoon-related disasters. Now, besides the issue of prediction of quantity or the amount of rainfall, issues are also faced by IMD in predicting the distribution of rainfall. And due to the uneven distribution of rainfall, there are floods in different parts of country, and at the same time, other parts are facing the issue of droughts. So in this background, let us understand the issues with the monsoon predictions in India. And they can be used in answering the questions related to disaster management, especially related to the prediction of monsoons, and also in the General Studies paper 1 related to the difficulty in prediction of Indian monsoons. Now, for monsoon forecast, the IMD relies on two types of methods. First is the statistical method, and second is the dynamic method. In the statistical method, the IMD relies on probabilistic forecast, or it relies on the probability. So in this regard, the IMD does not come up with any definitive number for its forecast. And for this, the IMD has classified monsoon rainfall in 5 categories. And these are the deficient, below normal, near normal, above normal, or excess. Now, these classifications are done based on long period average. And this long period average is an average of 50 years of rainfall. So, if the monsoon rainfall is in the category of deficient, that is less than the 90% of the long period average rainfall, so this means that the rainfall will only be about 90% of the 50-year average rainfall. And based on these categories, the IMD forecast assigns probability to the above different categories of monsoon rainfall. So for example, the IMD can forecast that there is 40% probability of rainfall being normal or above normal, etc. So different kind of probabilities are assigned to these 5 categories. And based on this, the IMD forecasts the amount of rainfall that is likely to happen in a particular monsoon period. So this clearly highlights that the IMD does not come up with a definite number for its forecast of amount of rainfall. And it assigns probability to the different kinds of monsoon rainfall category, which it has classified based on long period average of 50 years. So in this regard, let us look at the limitations that are faced by the IMD for proper prediction of the monsoon rainfalls. Now, the first and the foremost difficulty that is faced by the IMD is that the Indian subcontinent's topography is very complex, and we note that there are Himalayas, which are the youngest fold mountain and the highest mountains in the world, Along with that, the orientation of different geographical features, including the mountains and the different orographic barriers, also decide the amount and the quality of rainfall in the Indian subcontinent. And there is difficulty in prediction of tropical weather systems because the tropical weather systems have not been understood very well as of now. Now, one of the difficulties in predicting the tropical weather systems is that they destabilize very fast. Now, if you compare the tropical cyclones with the temperate cyclones, you will find that it is easier to predict the temperate cyclones because they are relatively stable and have a clearly defined direction, etc. However, in tropical areas, the weather systems destabilize very faster and they are present for a very short period of time. Now, as we have learned that India is also using dynamical model for prediction of current weather conditions. However, such dynamical models require a lot of data, and presently there is lack of enough or quality data for prediction of current weather conditions through the dynamical model. Further, most of the models that India has been using have been brought from the Western countries and which have been developed by the Western scientists to forecast the weather in their particular region. As such, there is a need for these Western models to be fine-tuned to the Indian conditions. So this is also one of the limitations in the predictions of Indian monsoon because the models that are used by the Indian scientists have been developed by the Western scientists for forecasting of weather in their region. Now, besides this, the dynamical model also requires huge amount of computations for which supercomputers are required. And availability of adequate number of supercomputers in India is also a challenge. So after looking at the difficulty in the prediction of the monsoons in India, let us look at the initiative that has been taken by the Government of India to improve the monsoon predictions, and that is known as the National Monsoon Mission. So the Government of India has launched the National Monsoon Mission to set up a state-of-the-art coupled ocean atmospheric climate model. And this aims at improved prediction of monsoon rainfall on extended range to seasonal time scale. Secondly, it focuses on improved prediction of temperature, rainfall, extreme weather events on short to medium range time scale. And it is due to these government efforts through its National Monsoon Mission, the statistical model along with dynamical model is improving the monsoon predictions in India. And for this, the Government of India is focusing on improving the quality of data that is available with the Indian Meteorological Department. So as we note that monsoons are very important for the economy of rural India as well as they are very important for the disaster predictions, for example the floods, droughts and the tropical cyclones. So in this regard there is a need for improving the quality of monsoon prediction by providing important resources to the Indian Meteorological Department. With this we conclude today's discussion and this is the question for the day.